On the internet, there are several media outlets that have focused on fact-checking information, the very idea I borrowed. So I decided to make an episode about myths related to technology, because there's plenty of those too. For example, the story from April 2nd, 2024, when The Information published that article about Amazon. They had launched their cashierless grocery stores, the ones called Just Walk Out, which worked on the principle of walk in, grab what you need, walk out, and the charge would happen automatically after you left. No checkout lines, no cashier, you didn't even need to use a self-checkout kiosk. The cameras saw what you took and charged your card once you exited. Well, in that article from The Information, they claimed that in 2022, a significant share of receipts required human review, and that there was a team in India working on this. Naturally, the story spread through the media, and with every exaggerated headline, it created the myth that there was no AI system at all, that it was just poor Indian workers calculating how many candy bars you grabbed today, my little sweet tooth. Of course, that turned out to be a highly embellished tale that was destined to fall apart. In reality, even in that original information piece, the story was different. Yes, there were people involved, just like there was a system that tracked everything. And the people were needed to label fragments of video and data, meaning they manually marked what was happening in the videos and where, so the AI could learn to recognize it better. You don't seriously think that when launching a pilot project, especially with the state of AI in 2022, someone would say, yeah, let's not check anything. The AI will kind of figure it out on its own. That's why they hired workers in India, and this wasn't the first case where they were involved in data annotation. And the article itself said that 700 out of 1,000 transactions went for review, not all of them, and that Amazon was switching to smart carts because things didn't work as planned and were too expensive. Or take the story about Coca-Cola's New Year commercial. I think pretty much everyone knows by now that AI played a major role in creating that video. But for some reason, they decided to upload, in addition to the fake people from their previous ad, a fake video about how the commercial was made. For context, Coca-Cola didn't make the ad alone. They brought in other studios, which is perfectly normal. One of them was Secret Level, and after the AI-generated Coca-Cola commercial came out, they decided to publish a behind-the-scenes video showing the production process, and they really shouldn't have, because people were already finding inconsistencies in the ad itself, like trucks having different numbers of wheels and different structures, all in 1.5-minute video. And of course, the breakdown continued with the behind-the-scenes clip, where people found plenty of oddities too. The character sketches were most likely AI-generated. Artists pointed out that the lines in those sketches made no sense. There were weird shots of a girl doing something with a pen, a shot of someone editing an image in Photoshop with only one layer. Oh, and a few days later, they deleted that video entirely. Around 100 people were involved in making the ad, and they spent quite a lot of money on generation. So that's the myth around this AI commercial, because as we now understand, it wasn't exactly made the way they presented it. Just like people jumped to the wrong conclusions when they saw the fresh 2025 study from Apple called The Illusion of Thinking. They released it in June, and many thought it was about how when you go into ChatGPT or other LLMs and press the thinking button, the model thinks, but gives answers that are not better, maybe even worse, or that reasoning modes aren't as good as people assume. And, just like with the Coca-Cola ad, plenty of interesting details surfaced here too. Apple published the paper on the 7th, and just 3 days later, a response came out titled The Illusion of Thinking. One of the authors was Anthropic's Opus model, the very one Apple claimed performs poorly at reasoning. The human co-author even wrote, "I thought it would be funny to write a reply co-authored with Claude Opus." The Apple paper said that Opus and other models aren't that good even in thinking mode. To prove this, they didn't give them ordinary tasks. Instead, they had them solve the Tower of Hanoi puzzle. You have 3 rods and need to move a stack of discs from one rod to another under 2 rules. You can't place a larger disc on a smaller one, and you can move only one disc at a time. Yes, it sounds like a decent test, but the minimum number of moves grows exponentially with the number of discs. With 3 discs, you can solve it in 7 moves. With 8 discs, you already need 255. How many did Apple choose? Correct, 15. The The model needed at least 32,767 moves to solve the puzzle, but it ran into token limits. The model failed. Apple counted it as a loss. The second task was even funnier, a boat puzzle, similar to the one with the cabbage, rabbit, and fox. Except the rules were a bit different, and also, it was impossible, totally unsolvable by anyone. After that, Apple released clarifications because people pointed out more issues. They admitted that models got confused even with fewer discs in the Tower of Hanoi, and that they changed the boat puzzle too. So this whole thing turned into a myth after the paper, the myth that reasoning models are not actually good. Even though the thinking mode does sometimes produce worse results, it is almost always better. And to be fair, Apple's paper did include correct observations and some nuances. And for dessert, a well-known fact, but people still do it. Nothing terrible, but when you swipe away apps to close them on your phone, it does not make it run faster. There are no benefits you might imagine. In fact, things get worse because it works the opposite way. On iPhones, most apps go into a kind of frozen state when you exit them. They stop using CPU time and almost don't consume battery. But if you close them, then the next time you open an app, it needs to reload everything from scratch. So the only real reason to do it is if it's a habit or you want everything cleared. All notifications read and all apps closed for that sense of tidiness. If you know another interesting myth that lots of people believe, keyword interesting, write it in the comments. I read every one of them.